Barack Obama launching the opening shots of what's shaping up to be a heated war of words with President Trump on the road to the midterms. During his return to the campaign trail in Illinois today, Obama unloading on what he calls the political darkness of the GOP and his successor in the White House.
He's just capitalizing on resentments that politicians have been fanning for years. The politics of division and resentment and paranoia has unfortunately found a home in the Republican Party. They're undermining our alliances, cozying up to Russia. What happened to the Republican Party? We can't just put walls up all around America. Walls don't keep out threats like terrorism or disease. We do not pressure the Attorney General or the FBI to use the criminal justice system as a cudgel to punish our political opponents. You need to vote because our democracy depends on it.
The former president taking a shot at Fox News while criticizing Trump for his attack on the media.
It shouldn't be Democratic or Republican to say that we don't threaten the freedom of the press because they say things or publish stories we don't like. I complained plenty about Fox News. But you never heard me threaten to shut them down or call them enemies of the people.
President Trump quickly responding during his speech in North Dakota.
Yeah, very popular guy here was just interviewing me. You know who I'm talking about, great guy. And he said, what do you think of President Obama's speech? And I said, I'm sorry, I watched it, but I fell asleep. I found he's very good for sleeping.
Greg, which is funny because President Trump doesn't really sleep.
I know,
he doesn't even need sleep, so that's quite a feat
Better
there.
Than Ambien.
What do you think about
what a contrast in styles.
Yeah, it was at 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock.
Yeah. You know, President Obama's like drinking a dozen pina coladas on the beach. It tastes sweet and it looks like fun. Then you throw up all night and remember nothing. He talks like he was the greatest president. You know, he lost 76 House seats and 15 Senate seats. So good luck with having his support. It's not going to help much. And the problem with all of his digs, you don't have to look very hard to find out that he's guilty of every single one of them. Yep. He talks about Trump targeting the press, James Rosen tapping phones and emails. Come on. I mean, Trump talks that game, but Obama acted it. And when you talk about resentment and paranoia, that was the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, always the oppressor versus the oppressed. Talk about cozying up to Russia. This was the guy who mocked Mitt Romney because Romney said Russia was a threat. Obama was the one that mocked him. Last, he said, how hard can it be not to say Nazis are bad? Trump sent a Nazi back that was in the country while you were president, and you couldn't even say radical Islam. There.
The good news is, Jesse, that Barack Obama can still get a rise out of Greg.
Yeah, I think Gumbo had some pina coladas last night. It's pretty obvious. I think Greg put it very, very well. I'd only add a few things. It was such a boring speech. I had to watch it. And Trump says more in 10 minutes than Obama says in 1 hour. It's so refreshing, this president, compared to the last president, where you could drive a truck right through each sentence. But if you look at the specifics, and I'll go through it again, division, President Obama went out and called half the country bitter clingers. He said, if you disagree with me, you're racist. He says, if you want border security, you're xenophobic. And he said, if you're against radical Islam, you're an Islamophobic. And Trump's a racist? Please, you've been palling around with Farrakhan and Reverend Wright your entire life. Cozying up to Russia? I mean, he was whispering sweet nothings in Putin's deputies' ears and said, I'll do whatever you want after the election. Let Putin run wild. Don't give me that. And he's saying Trump's abusing the Attorney General's office. It was Obama's team that spied, that abused FISA, that wiretapped their political enemies. So don't give me that. And advice for the Democrats, he left that party in shambles. If I was a Democrat, I'd say, no thanks.
That is an interesting point, Juan, that I wanted to get your take on, because President Obama is out there on the campaign trail because he wants to gin up the liberal base, the Democrats. President Trump is out on the campaign trail because he wants to gin up the conservative base. But at some point, does President Obama risk overshadowing the next generation of Democrats? Because Barack Obama is not on the ballot. He's never going to be on the ballot again. And when he's not on the ballot, Democrats haven't done that well.
No, but I think you're in a situation where President Obama is welcome, especially in states where there are important swing elections. So you're going to see a lot of Obama in California, for example, Dana. You'll see him in Illinois. He'll make very targeted strategic trips because I think they're aware that he is a figure that the Greg Gutfelds of the world want to beat up on and say, oh, it's Obama.
I love
it's
Obama.
So,
but that when he's, but even if he goes to those local targeted races, which I know he's picked 7 in California, where the
right.
challenger is right on the heels of the Republican there, or
right.
even ahead.
Yeah.
But every speech they give is now national.
No, I think that you have to also consider he's also doing a lot of private events to raise money and that kind of thing. But I think that what you're getting in this midterm election is people are saying, you know what, we need all hands on deck. And you need the power of the former president. Some people would argue he is the leader of the Democratic Party.
Until there's a new one.
And so, yeah, and so I think that they want him out there, and I think they value him greatly. Contrary to what Greg says, you know, the Justice Department...
And Jesse. Don't forget Jesse. You just pick on me.
Oh, sorry. You know I don't mean it. You know I don't mean it. All right.
Well, can I get Dagan in here? But I want you to listen to what President President Obama said about the economy, and then President Trump responded. Let's take a listen to that.
You read my mind.
The actions we took during that crisis returned the economy to healthy growth and initiated the longest streak of job creation on record. I mention all this just so when you hear how great the economy is doing right now, let's just remember when this recovery started.
Okay, the recovery did start then, but one thing that's interesting is it was the tax cut package and the dereg piece that really put the fuel on the fire to make it roar.
It was President Trump's policies that have taken this economy to a higher growth plateau. That you have, yeah, the recovery started in 2009, but this morning we found out that last month wages are growing at the fastest pace in the recovery since 2009. That we have job growth this year that is actually so far in the first 8 months, on average, it's faster than it was last year. That is utterly remarkable. Consumer confidence, 18-year high. Factory growth, 14-year high. This economy is firing on all cylinders. It's because of the tax cuts, because of the deregulation, and not one Democrat voted for the tax reform, the tax cut package.
Thank God.
So he's on. But you know, yeah, what are you going to run on? You're going to run on the deficit? He doubled the national debt.
Who?
President
Trump?
Obama did.
Let me just tell you.
He doubled the national debt.
For what, Dagan? So to get us out of a terrible recession. Wage growth flat in this country right now.
No, it's not. 2.9%.
I will not sit here and have somebody tell me it's flat. It's not.
Flat.
Disposable income in this country, adjusting for inflation, is growing at 2.9%. That is adjusting for inflation, and it's largely because of the tax cuts. And by the way, the policies that pulled us out of that deep recession, it was the Federal Reserve and it was President Bush who came up with the bank bailout and the bailout of the autos, whether you like it or not.
So you don't want to give credit where credit's due, but let's just talk about the economy as now. You see consumer confidence high, and I think that is a tremendous boost to our economy at the moment. But guess what? People are spending on credit. Their credit cards.
I would say this to Obama about this economy. You didn't build that. That's what I would say. You didn't build that.
Yeah,
he didn't.
And again,
Trump supercharged it. It was the weakest recovery since World War II.
You want to play
and now
politics.
we have a much better economy.
You want to play politics with this.
There was a great quote. I think it was Steve Forbes. I just watched it on Fox Business Network, which is a great network, by the way. And he said if there was a head coach that led a team to a bunch of 8-8 records, and he was there for 4 or 5 or 8 years, let's just say, and then you have a new coach come in the first year, they make the playoffs. And that'd be like the old coach saying, oh, you know, that was all me. I did that. No. New coach, new system, new game.
I believe in my heart that President Obama, when these jobs numbers come out and these economic numbers come out, he's sitting there watching them going, miss, that they're rooting for the economy to stink to high heaven. And I think that that's a loser.
Bill Maher actually said he wanted the economy to crash.
That's your attitude about the way you would feel Democrats, but it's not. And that's the why you go after Obama, who in fact lifted this economy up and should be saluted for. It's just like the speech today. Here's Obama being hopeful.
When he was in the White House in 8 years.
Here's Obama being hopeful, speaking to our better nature as Americans, calling on us to try to save this republic. And instead, you're going to say, oh, didn't Obama criticize Fox News? Yeah, but he didn't try to shut it down, which is what Trump is trying to do, calling people enemy of the American people.
Last word to Greg, and then we got to go.
Trump's not trying to shut it down. What we're doing here is we're seeing a pretty decent contrast. President Obama is all eloquence, feel-good words, no deeds ever. Trump, his words are blunt and rude, ticks people off, but all the deeds are really good. Yeah. It's the best contrast you could ever have. So you have a smiley face who gets nothing done, or you get a jerk that gets something done. I'll take the jerk.
I tell you what, why don't you try telling that to Osama bin Laden? Why don't you try telling that to the Federal Reserve when you say, who rescued this economy?
I already shook Rob O'Neill's hand over that.
It's an interesting time. Interesting.
It's going to get better, Dana.